Oh my. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that fantastic welcome. And, I have to say to all of you gathered here, thank you for your dedication and generous support for the work of SAGE. That's why we're all here, and thank you so much for that. And congratulations to SAGE for your 40th birthday, 4 decades of doing good work for LGBTQ seniors, and to be recognized with the Lifetime Achievement Award is really, truly humbling, because I must say I qualify for the lifetime part. I am a legitimate octogenarian, and from my octogenarian vantage point, everyone under the age of 65 are youngsters. And those of you youngsters that are here are very generous, because it's going to take some time for you to reach your octogenarianhood. But the other part of the award, the achievement part, for that, I am only one of a huge number of people, because all the achievements are achieved by our collective efforts. No one person brings about change on that level without the contribution and the support of many, many people. I am one of many people. I'm one of you, and I'm also one of the seniors now. So it's a meaningful award that humbles me. I've been an activist all my life. From my late teens, when the civil rights movement was coming to a head, I've been active in the civil rights movement. I did a civil rights musical called Fly Blackbird, and we sang at almost every civil rights rally in Los Angeles County. And the biggest one of them all was at the LA Sports Arena, where the keynote speaker was the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was a thrill being part of that rally. The Fly Blackbird crew was the principal singers there, and we sang our hearts out. And then Dr. King spoke, and he rattled the rafters of that huge, vast arena that's seated many tens of thousands of people. And his speech was soaring and deeply impressive. But the most thrilling thing about it was that the Fly Blackbird cast was invited to come downstairs to Dr. King's dressing room and meet him. And I must tell you, I can't tell you the feeling that we had when we shook his hand and chatted with him, shared a few words. And this hand that shook his didn't get washed for about 3 days after that. During the Vietnam War, I became active in the peace movement, and by that time I was pursuing an acting career. So I joined a Hollywood peace organization called the EIPJ, Entertainment Industry for Peace and Justice. And I worked together with people like Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland. It was a thrilling and bold and important movement. And in the 70s, when a movement began to get an apology and reparations from the US government for the unconstitutional imprisonment of innocent Japanese Americans during the Second World War. That was one of the most egregious violations of our Constitution. We were Americans. My mother was born in Sacramento, California. My father was a San Franciscan. My brother and sister and I were born in Los Angeles. And we had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. And yet, because we happened to look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor, we were summarily rounded up with no charges, no trial, due process. The central pillar of our justice system simply disappeared. And we were rounded up and imprisoned. Our family was imprisoned in a barbed wire prison camp in the swamps of Arkansas. That experience I had was as a child, 5 years old to 8.5 years old. And I really didn't understand that experience. But as I grew up and had conversations with my parents, I gained an understanding of their anguish and their rage and their sense of degradation. And yet, they taught me about American democracy. It is a people's democracy, and the people who cherish the high ideals of our government, our system of government. All men are created equal, including women. That's included in that. We are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is our government. But my parents told us that the ideals are shining ideals, but if the people don't actively engage in the process of government, who cherish those high ideals, then we don't have a democracy. We don't have a good government. The people have failed. And one Sunday afternoon, my father took me downtown to the Adlai Stevenson for President campaign headquarters. You know how old I am now. And there I saw for myself what it takes to be in a people's democracy. There were all these people passionately dedicated to electing this great governor of Illinois. And I heard his speeches on the radio, and they were inspiring. And so I spent all my after-school time and weekends there at that headquarters, stuffing envelopes, making phone calls, leafleting on the sidewalk. That's what it took to be in a people's democracy. And my father said sometimes you have to hold the democracy's feet to the fire. And so that is why I've been active in the social justice campaigns. And in the 70s, when a movement began in the Japanese American community to demand an apology and redress from the United States government, I became active in that. I testified at the Congressional Commission gathering information and shared with them my childhood experience and how it defined my life. And so I've been vocal on all these social justice issues, but one, the one issue that was closest to me, that was deeply personal to me. From the time I was about 9 or 10, I knew I was different from others in ways beyond my Japanese face. The other guys got excited by Sally or Monica, who was blossoming out in full premature womanhood. I thought Sally and Monica were nice. But Bobby, don't applaud. A young teenager wants to be part of the gang. He wants to be like everybody. And so I began pretending that Monica was hot. And When the other guys started dating, I started dating. And when my buddy wanted to go on a double date, I went on a double date. But to tell the truth, I was more interested in my buddy than in my date. But as you grow older, you find that you're not the only one. You don't have to be feeling so different, that there are others like you. And one of them introduced me to a gay bar. And that was a discovery. There are many like me. And I could drop whatever guard I had. I could relax and enjoy a friendly conversation with a bottle of beer. It was my sanctuary. But one night, one of the older guys told me that even in a gay bar, we had to be careful because the police raided gay bars. And I said, well, why? I mean, we're not hurting anyone. We're not doing anything wrong. But you're in a gay bar, and it was illegal. Police would come and march everybody out and put them on a paddy wagon, drive them down to the police station, and fingerprint them, take their photos, and put their names on a list. If it got exposed, any of that, it would be devastating. It was so unjust to criminalize people who were just enjoying an evening with each other. And then I understood what my parents said, because we were made the enemy when Pearl Harbor was bombed, when we had nothing to do with it. Hysteria swept across this country. And this is just like that. We're not hurting anybody. We were just enjoying each other's company and a bottle of beer. And yet that was criminal. And we got photographed, fingerprinted, and put on the list. I thought it was so unjust. And then 1969, Star Trek, the show I was working on. Yes, I had a good career going. I was soaring through the galaxies, driving a starship, and they paid me for it. I was silent on who I really was because I passionately loved acting, and I was developing a good career. And if I came out, I could forget it. My career would be taken away. No one would hire me. I knew that. So I was silent. And 1969, the same year that Star Trek was canceled, Stonewall happened. And that news spread throughout the country like electricity. I heard about it in a gay bar, and it was thrilling. A bar in Greenwich Village, when transgender women stood strong on their high heels and started flinging those beer bottles, ashtrays, whatever, at the grading police. They made the police retreat, and the police had to call for reinforcements. But inside the bar, the calls were made to their friends in Greenwich Village, and gays and lesbians came pouring out into the streets. And now the resistance was on the street as well as in the bar. It was an extraordinary thing. The police reinforcement came, and the riot went on and on for 3 nights and 3 days, and finally the police wanted to negotiate. And that was the beginning of the gay liberation movement, which was thrilling to us in Los Angeles. We were inspired. And yet, I protected my career. I was silent, despite my vocal, loud activism on other issues. And then when the AIDS plague It was torture. Friends suddenly got sick, drastically lost weight. They were down to skin and bone. And before you knew it, they were gone. It was so cruel. And the government was not only just ignoring them, they were aggressively denying them. It was a devastating time. And we had to participate in some way. I was together with Brad by that time, and we talked about it. And still protecting my career, we participated by our checkbook. We were checkbook supporters. And because of the activism of the people that were in the struggle, the guilt on my side became unbearable. Here I was protecting my career, and they had sacrificed everything, their jobs, their careers, their friends, maybe their families. And there they were, actively engaged in a struggle that was my struggle as well. And because of their struggle, things began to happen. In Massachusetts in 2003, their Supreme Court ruled for marriage equality, and the state of Massachusetts had the first marriage equality in the United States of America. That was a landmark event. But 2 years later, in 2005, there was another landmark on the West Coast in California, my home state. The people's representatives, the legislature, both houses, the Senate and the Assembly, passed the marriage equality bill. It was the people's representatives that passed that bill. It was an amazing event. All that bill needed was one more signature, the signature of our governor, a movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger. When he campaigned for the governor's seat, he campaigned by saying, "I'm from Hollywood. I've worked with gays and lesbians. I have friends that are gays and lesbians." On that rhetoric, some of our gay friends did vote for him. But when the bill landed on his desk, he played to his right-wing Republican base and vetoed it, and we were raging. And that night, Brad and I were watching the late night news, and we saw Schwarzenegger being interviewed by the press, and he is a robot. They said, "Why did you veto it?" And he said, "I have no problem with it, but I vetoed it." "But why did you veto it?" "I have no problem with it, but I vetoed it." He kept repeating that over and over. And then it cut to Santa Monica Boulevard. Young people were pouring out onto Santa Monica Boulevard, venting their rage on Arnold Schwarzenegger's veto. And we felt the same way. My blood was boiling. And Brad and I talked for a long time that night, into the wee hours. And we decided it's time. It's time for me to come out and take a stand. And I spoke to the press for the first time as a gay man, and I blasted Arnold Schwarzenegger's veto. So I am a latecomer to activism on the LGBT equality movement. But I came out loud and ubiquitous all over the place, all over California. And 3 years after the veto of the legislature's bill, marriage equality bill, we got marriage equality in California through the courts. And Brad and I were the first couple to get our marriage license in West Hollywood. And I joined up with the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, and they organized a nationwide speaking tour for me, visiting all the universities and whatever organizations that would have me. And it was a thrilling experience to be galvanizing the movement for marriage equality. And at long last, thanks to the work of so many people, our collective efforts over the years, in 2005, we got marriage equality throughout the land, from coast to coast, from border to border. It was a great achievement, and it was a collective achievement. And I was just one person, part of that collective. So I humbly accept this recognition of the Lifetime Achievement Award. But it's really something that we all accomplished together. And tonight we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the work that SAGE is doing. And we just raised a lot of money, and I will add another $1,000 to it, Brad and I. And so the final, very personal collective is Brad. He has been in my life for over 32 years. But just 3 weeks ago, on September 14th, we celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary. And so collectively, I express our thanks to all of you for our very personal achievements together with all of you. And may, as we say on Star Trek, may the good work of SAGE live long and prosper.